My question is very specific, and it's in relation to your plans to reconsider the introduction of a cost of disability payment and the details of any engagement your department has had with the Department of Children, Disability, Equality, Integration and Youth in relation to this matter.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Deputy Connolly, for raising this. I am committed to improving outcomes for people with a disability. I announced a number of measures to support people with disabilities in Budget 2024, including a €400 lump sum payment in November, a Christmas bonus double payment in December, a cost of living bonus payment in January, and a €12 increase in the maximum personal rate of weekly disability payments. The free travel scheme has also been extended to people who are medically unfit to drive. In addition, the Taoiseach has placed a major emphasis on improving supports and services for people with disabilities in all aspects of their lives. He has established a special Cabinet Committee on Children, Education and Disability. This new Cabinet Committee will provide for a whole-of-government approach to address the issues facing people with disabilities and their families. The Indicon Cost of Disability report identified that additional costs of disability run across many areas of expenditure, including housing, transport, health and education. The report found that there is a spectrum from low to high additional costs of disability, depending on individual circumstances. The report concluded, following extensive consultation, that extra disability payments should be targeted to those most in need and who face the greatest additional cost of disability, rather than spreading resources thinly. That was the rationale for the Green Paper consultation, to elicit views on making higher rates of payments available to people with more profound disabilities. Based on the feedback I received, I decided not to proceed as set out. Instead, the issue is being referred for inclusion in the programme of work of the new Cabinet Committee on Disability Matters established by the Taoiseach. Under the auspices of that committee, the Department of Children, Equality, Disability, Integration and Youth is in the process of developing, together with the input of disabled people and their representative organisations, the next National Disability Strategy, which is hoped to be delivered later this year. This new strategy will address a number of matters related to the cost of disability and coordinate the continued implementation of the UNCRPD in Ireland. My department has continued to engage with the Department of Children.
Thank you, Minister. And I welcome the fact that there's a major emphasis on disability. I welcome the fact that there's a Cabinet Committee and so on. But forgive me with my frustration, because the Indicon report was one in a long series of reports, decades, and it's just an interest I have in looking at reports and how we get to this point. And so over decades we've had a number of reports. 20 years ago we had an Indicon report for the National Disability Authority. At that stage it estimated an additional weekly cost of €143 and so on. 2015, Cullinan and Lyons. Fast forward to 21. We're talking decades here. Now we're in 24 and we still haven't implemented the major recommendation from the Indicon report. I acknowledge there's a range of disability. I acknowledge all of that. But we have done nothing in progressing the disability payment, which has been asked for from so many organisations within a rights-based context. And now we had a green paper. I welcome that it's scrapped. It caused great upset, great distress. But if we could address the recommendations from the Indicon report, which are over 3 years now.
Thank you, Deputy. Well, as you know, the cost of disability crosses a number of departments, whether it's transport, whether it's housing adaptation grants, whether it's access to services, whether it's access to healthcare. So income support is only part of the solution. Now, the groups weren't happy with the Green Paper, and that we're going to have to go back to the drawing board in terms of the Cabinet Committee, and we're going to take learnings from the Green Paper. You know, I don't have a timeline because the Green Paper was rejected, and the Cabinet Committee will look at this in the round. In the meantime, I look at how I can provide additional supports, whether it's through schemes like employability, the free travel pass, the reasonable accommodation fund, and as I said, I'll continue to work with the groups, but the Cabinet Committee is where it's at the minute, and they do meet regularly, to be fair to them.
Minister, we signed the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disability in 2007. We ratified it in 2018. We've utterly failed to ratify the optional protocol which would allow people to take an action. We have for years got away from charity, and I welcome the changes you've made and the different bonuses that have been given. But repeatedly, organisations on the ground have said, let's get away from this model. We want to build a model of empowerment. And a model of empowerment enabling people to live means that we have to give a basic payment, and we failed to do that. And now we're back to basics, scrapping the green paper, which I welcome, going back to the Cabinet, an election on the cards, and absolutely nothing given. And just the figures, you can pick them from any report. People with disability are more than twice as likely to experience poverty and deprivation, have an employment rate of just 36%, the fourth lowest in the EU. I could go on. I know your heart is in this, and I know the work that you do, but we have to get away from praising ourselves from a little bit in the budget and then a little bit into the budget to an overall plan that's rights-based and empowerment.
Well, Deputy, I published the green paper, I consulted widely, and people didn't want it. So that was it. I took it off the table. So now the Cabinet Committee is in place, and as I said, it's not just about income supports. There's 1.1 million people in this country that are disabled, and the question is, how do we target the resources? And I do know that Minister Rabbitte does continue to consult with the sector, and the findings from the Green Paper will be taken into consideration at the Cabinet Committee. So, as I said, it does meet regularly, and I know that the Taoiseach is committed to dealing with this issue, and I'm happy to do all that I can in my department to support people with disabilities.